Hello and welcome back to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I'm your host, Marie Hutchison, and today's guest is a powerful voice for personal growth and community-driven leadership. Laurie Drummond is the founder of the Sisterhood Collective, a global women's community with over 30,000 members. Her journey from 13 years in the Australian Army to mentoring women worldwide is both inspiring and a testament to reinvention and leading with authenticity. Laurie's story spans war zones in Iraq, entrepreneurial leaps like starting Ultra CrossFit, and building safe spaces where women can grow, connect, and rediscover purpose. Impressive, Laurie. Welcome and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to chat to you.
So let's start with your background. For our audience who might not know about you, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are?
Interestingly, as you kind of alluded to in the beginning, so 13 years in the Army, and everyone always says, what did you do in the Army? And so I started in military intelligence, which was an absolutely incredible career, as you can imagine, going to quite a few different war zones, traveling the world, meeting lots of people, getting some new skills. And all of that led me to then moving into, would you believe, Iraq. I moved there for 2 years to work in the private security industry. So I have this fascination with international relations and making countries or, making safe spaces for people in general. And I guess that's transferred over into everything that I've done.
Wow, you were very much into male-dominated spaces in the military. What led you from the Australian Army to founding the Sisterhood Collective?
Many experiences in the Army with women was very competitive and it was very hard to be seen. We're going back quite a few years here, so I don't want to, give off my age here, but we are going back a long time. We were always competing against each other to be seen, to get on the next deployment that we wanted to go on. We all trained in exercises to be deployed and actually do the work. We had to compete to get promotions and it wasn't a nice environment, I would say. Like I found that rather than women helping each other go somewhere, they didn't. So my relationship wasn't that great in the beginning, but I did have a lot of female friends as I got older. After the COVID lockdowns, I was craving that connection again. So what I ended up doing was I am a bit of a people person and I do like a little bit of a long lunch. So I invited a bunch of my girlfriends over, all from different walks of life, and they're all over 35, interestingly. But we sat down, we're having a few drinks, we're talking, there's food, everything's happening. And what I noticed was because I'd created this calm and safe and comfortable space, these women that didn't actually know each other felt comfortable enough to share, their struggles. From that, someone would jump up and say, oh, I've been through that. You should contact such and such. Or this is, what I did to get through it. Or this is my story. And by learning from each other, they were able to get through those hard times. And I also found that in that age group, we all have the similar struggles, but maybe we've just gone through them in a different season of life, or we're in a different season of life in this moment, but we've been there, so we can share that. Anyway, I sat back and watched that. And so I ran a couple more long lunches, because who doesn't like a long lunch? And that's what I noticed again with a few different people. And I thought, you know what, this is interesting. I need to take this further. So then I came up with the idea of Sisterhood Collective and started it online and really went from there to try and get that reach out as far as possible.
Before we get into Sisterhood Collective, let's talk a little bit about your experiences in the Army, especially your time in high-pressure environments like when you were in Iraq. How did those experiences shape your outlook on resilience and leadership?
It's interesting, I was talking a lot about resilience earlier today. And, I also went to a ladies' speaking event in the south of France, and the topic was resilience. I was talking to ladies that worked on the super yachts, which again is another very male-dominant industry. When I talked about my story through the military, I found that we had very similar issues. We had very similar experiences, that you do feel very lonely operating in high pressure environment. Situations are very different, even to the point where the safety equipment or my body armor was way too big for me. So I couldn't move around so comfortably. Plus, it was the same weight as what it is for the men. yet I'm pint-sized, so tiny, was expected to carry the same weights, do everything exactly the same. But it's actually, we don't operate the same. And of course, there's not many of you out there. So it is very isolating and it can become quite lonely. So it's like, who can I turn to? So that's probably to get through all of those sort of situations. The mentality back then was just get on with it. If you complained, you wouldn't be invited back to go again. And then you get that reputation of not being reliable or you're a bit of a whinger. And that is certainly not how I was brought up. I was brought up to just get on with things. And so I did. And through that, that made me, I guess, quite hard or strong. And the way I probably got through it, coping mechanism wise, would be I had to compartmentalize certain aspects of the job. And that's just how I did it. And I've changed since then, I think, as I've evolved and grown. But back then, that's what it was.
Yes, because there was no special adjustments made because you were a woman. You simply had to step up and accept it. Otherwise, as you said, you would not be invited back for another stint or another deployment. Very interesting. And as you say, other women in similar male-dominated spaces have similar experiences where they have to just suck it up and be in situations where it's not necessarily catering to their strength, be that they're smaller. There is definitely benefit to that in certain situations.
The one thing I've probably noticed with that actually, and what we need in those situations is someone to reach out to. So when I spoke to these women, when I say they're lonely, not only are they isolated and maybe not even having connection to the internet if you're out in the middle of the ocean or in a war zone, for example, it's having no one to talk to about what you're going through and what you're facing. Now, I'm sure it's much better in the military these days, but certainly back then it wasn't. And I know in other industries, it's still not there, although there is more awareness thanks to the internet being able to get so much more reach with information.
Yes, that makes absolute sense. Being cut off from other people and not having anyone to vent to. And I think for women particularly, we love to vent. It just is healthy for us to get it out. And just to have someone to talk things through is healthy for our mental well-being.
It's a necessity, definitely.
One of your standout stories is leaving the army and working at Aldi. Can you tell us about that and what you learned from that experience, especially when it comes to listening to your intuition?
You know what's funny is that when I left the army against what everyone told me not to do, because it was when the GFC hit, the global financial crisis hit, and Dad was like, don't do it. And I'm like, no, I'm done. And I was at that stubborn, I guess, point in my life. So I left anyway. Here's me thinking that I am applying for a job because I heard about this job through word of mouth. Hey, Laurie, call this person, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, cool. So I call this headhunter and I think I'm going for a job for the luxury car company Audi. And turns out I'm going for an area manager position for the supermarket chain of Aldi supermarkets. I was like, oh my goodness. And I start the interview process, and being a German company, it's very structured, which I love. I love structure, having been in the army for so long. So there was lots of, there was specific hierarchy and there was growth in the positions, you could climb the chain. But I started the interview process and didn't want to look too much like a Wally when she said, this is Aldi, the supermarkets. I'm like, oh, yep, that's good. Sitting there thinking, oh my goodness. And so I was too far down the interview process, or maybe just pride, and I didn't want to go back. So I literally completed the interview process, 3 times through all the interviews and group sessions that we had to do, and I eventually got offered the job. And what I learned from that experience, because I can say this, it didn't last very long at all. I hated it from about day 2, and much of it was to do with the fact that it didn't align with my values. For example, as part of the training, I had to be like a secret shopper, and I walked through the supermarket and I had to try and steal things and then go through the checkout having stolen something. There was a test for the employees to say, excuse me, is there anything else on your trolley? What's in your bag? Blah, blah, blah. And I did this. And I remember putting, I think, a hairbrush into my handbag at the time. My palms were sweating and my hands were shaking just doing the act, because I just don't do that. And then when I went through the checkout and I paid for, I was very strategic. I organised like spaghetti bolognese or something. So I had spaghetti and the mince and rah-rah. And I go through the checkout and pay. And as I take 3 steps forward, the area manager comes up to me and the poor checkout attendant looks at me as if you've just got me fired. And my heart sank through my shoes. So that was one thing. And the second part to it was I started doing stock takes, and I'm in the freezer in a suit in high heels, leaning in at 11 o'clock at night, and there's all these frozen peas that had split from a bag. And I was like, are you serious? I'm an officer in the army that didn't do that sort of a stock take. And now I'm literally counting peas in a freezer. I'm like, this is not for me. So those kind of things happened, the clarity came within like a month. And any other time, especially being in the army, I'd just crack on. I'd get on with it. But it was this light bulb moment for me when I thought, I don't have to do this. And so the very next day, I wrote an email to the operations manager on the Gold Coast and said, this isn't for me. How do I get out of it? And he goes, well, you'll need to do an exit interview with the general manager. And the general manager was the one that actually gave me the job. So I go down there, and when I sat in that seat, he was not happy with me. He's like, we waited for you when you went off traveling, you said you wanted this and rah, rah, rah. And he raised his voice at me and, gave me that, I'm very disappointed in you type thing. And another light bulb moment happened for me when I sat there and just thought, you can yell at me and it doesn't actually impact me today. In the army, I would have been terrified. But today I feel strong. This is really not what I want to do and I want out. So I apologized and I left. And so that was a big girl pants. I had to put my big girl pants on. That's when I first realized that I have the power to choose the path that I want to take.
I love that story. It's absolutely brilliant. Well, you chose, they're both German companies, so you were on the right track there, but Audi is certainly a lot different to Aldi. But also how those experiences, as you said, because from day one, it didn't align with your values, you weren't going to get fulfillment out of it. And I can imagine you in high heels counting peas.
You can imagine too, and I think you haven't met me in person, but I am small. So you can imagine me like tipped over into the freezer, my little shoes and my feet swaying in the wind and like trying to reach the peas at the bottom of the freezer. Not a pretty look.
So let's get back. So you did a lot of things in between. You did the Ultra CrossFit as well. But let's get back to Sisterhood Collective. I know you mentioned earlier it began as a casual catch-up, which has now grown to a global community. How did that transition happen? What made you think, okay, now this is going to be something more formal? And maybe explain to our audience exactly how it works.
The way we started was I wanted global reach right from the start. And because my entire life I've been a bit of a traveler, I've visited overseas, but I'm an only child. So I'm good at maintaining relationships. Like friends fill my cup, people fill my cup. So I make the effort to reach out to people, and I've always maintained those relationships. Having been a business mentor for gym owners for 7 years, I had mentored companies all over the world. So as you can imagine, I've got contacts everywhere. And so that's kind of how we started getting the reach. We focused on the women because that's the era of life that I'm going through, and my bestie, Lauren, who is co-founder, we're both going through that stage of our life. And so we want to live through the Sisterhood Collective. So we create this on our needs and to help other women get through life at this stage. So how we formalized it was just starting through summits. And any business that you start, I don't know, but for me, it doesn't always go in this linear path. And you might have this idea, but you are influenced by so much noise and so many people. So we've spent the last 2 years really working out how and what we want to do with this company that does have such good reach already. And yes, my background is a lot of business and investing now. If you haven't got the right mindset and you don't do the self-care that you need, you can't succeed as a business owner. So our point of difference initially was to start with that, like getting a better mindset or frame of mind in order to succeed in life. And what I found is it's not just about business. To be a good mum, to be a good friend, employee, whatever it is, you need a positive frame of mind. And so we start there. But what I've also noticed is if you pop yourself in a sea of women or people that they're ambitious or they're driven and they're motivated and they are taking steps or strides forward, you will get caught up in that current and you will naturally, their excitement will start to emulate onto you. And so you will get caught in that current and move forward. And so that's what the sisterhood is about connecting with yourself first and then connecting with other women, whether that's online and in person where we have events here in Abu Dhabi now. The next part of that is growth. And growth is, again, personal. So you've got personal growth to do and then also potentially business growth or leadership growth or professional growth. And then the next bit is if you can get those two bits right, you are going to thrive. And I think the people you surround yourself with will help you get to that state. And what thriving looks like to everybody is different, and that's good. And, that's what makes us a collective. So what we do now is we have memberships online and in person. We've got a few tiers there depending on what season of life you're in. But the whole ethos behind the Sisterhood Collective is intentional decision making, because you have the power to make a choice. And even if you don't make a decision, that is your choice. You've chosen not to do that. And so the consequences and the outcome are all because of you. So you get to choose the life that you want. And that's what we're helping women do.
I love what you're saying, reminds me of that saying that you are the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with. So what you've created is that ability for women to be surrounded by other women of a similar mindset. I also liked how you said that the right mindset is so important to succeed as a business owner, and that growth is not a linear path. We don't expect to go step, 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 step. Each one has to find their own way of getting there. Why do you think so many women feel stuck or disconnected from purpose? And what's one first step that they can take to shift that?
Well, we focus on 35 plus, but to be fair, this could actually be for anybody. But we get bored with life, and sometimes, depending what age you are. But I also think it's too much noise. There's so much influence. Someone suggests that you do this, or society tells you what to do. Like, you are expected to go to school, go to high school, go to university, get married, buy a house, have a mortgage for 20 or 30 years. That's no longer the case. And people are starting to be aware of that. Like, I don't have to be in this matrix and follow someone else's path. I get to choose my own. And I think there's cultural, family, and society expectations, which plays on our minds, and we get torn between doing what we think we have to do versus doing what we want to do. And it comes back to knowing your values. I mean, and if you just think about it, making decisions, as long as you stay true to your values, such as being kind to others and not hurting people along the way, but doing something that you want to do. You have one chance on this earth. So make it a good one, make it fun. You can reinvent yourself. You literally have the pencil. You can write your own narrative. You can change the story. You can turn the page. And that's the thing with having this freedom of choice that we're so privileged to have.
Yeah, that goes back to your story about Aldi versus Audi, right? Again, choosing, realizing that we can choose. And as you say, I think when you get to a certain age, we start to sort of say, you know what, I don't have to follow what everyone else is doing. And I like that. So if someone is feeling stuck, I think the message is change things. You don't have to stay where you're at. If it's not aligned with your values, if it's not fulfilling you to what you're looking for, change it. You don't have to stay on that path just because that's the path that you started out on.
And you know what? One easy thing to do would be, I've written about 5 different things you could do here, but I was just thinking as you spoke, what are your non-negotiables? If you're in a space right now where you're lonely or unhappy and you don't even know what makes you happy anymore, because that's unfortunately where a lot of people are at as well. I did this exercise with some of my mentees and also myself when I found myself lost at this point. I reached out to 3 different friends from different eras of my life, and my mum was one of them, and said to them, when you think about me thriving and happy, what am I doing? And the 3 of those ladies gave me about 5 answers each, and 4 out of 5 of them were all the same. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, that is what makes me happy. And those things that they said, I then made an effort to put them on my calendar and make sure that I was doing them, because that brings me back to who I am. It reminds me who I am. It makes me happy, and it changes my whole outlook, my motivation, my mindset. So what are your non-negotiables?
Excellent. And if you're not sure what they are, ask 3 friends, because they will tell you when they see that you are happy. I love that. That's an excellent tip. Thank you for that. Burnout is a topic you speak openly about. What are the signs for you, and how can someone rebuild from being burnt out?
I get frustrated. I'd be a little bit more snappier. Instead of being more conscious in the way that I speak to people, I'm a little bit more short. So when I start to see that my fuse is shorter than normal, that's a sign. Also, I get this fog where decision making isn't as easy for me as it normally is. And I'm like, oh. And when one extra thing gets thrown on my plate, and my capacity is pretty huge, but when that one extra thing is starting for me to say something like, oh no, not that as well. When I feel like that, they're my 3 signs to go, you need to take a hot minute. And I was speaking to a psychologist today, actually, on my podcast, and she said, you need to stop and reflect or take 5-second breather. And I think that's great advice. For me personally, yes, I could do that, but I need a reset. The way a reset works for me is 2 different ways depending on the time. One would be just one night away. So going on a little staycation or having a night in, but with no work and no distractions, like Laurie time with the animals. The other one is I like to brain dump. I need to get everything out of my head because it's weighing me down. So just get it all out onto a piece of paper. And then I go back to the power of 3. What are the 3 things I have to get done today that will have an impact on my business and my life?
I resonate with when you say we have capacity for a lot, but when you find that one more little thing added on is just too much, that's a very strong signal that you are burnt out or that you are close to burnout because, the smallest thing, what is the saying? The straw that broke the camel's back, right? So it's that one extra thing. If you're starting to feel yourself frustrated with something small being added on, it's time to take that staycation or that night in with no distractions. I love that.
And the problem is too, if you don't, you actually start to become a different version of yourself, and it's generally not the version that you like.
Absolutely. Like you say, again, you start acting outside of what's important to you, what your values are, the kindness, or whatever else that's important to you. If you can't practice that because you are just overwhelmed with things, well, then it's time for a break or something needs to change. One thing that you mention a lot and that you speak about is the right room. Can you explain what that means and how someone can find their own version of the right room?
It's a place where you don't have to shrink yourself. It's where you'll walk in and you'll feel accepted straight away. I feel like it's a vibe in a sense. Even when I used to go to and try different gyms, I knew as soon as I walked in there, if it was for me. And there's other gyms I'd go to, I'm like, I'm not coming back to it. It's just not my place. And usually it needs to be an emotional connection. And emotional connections, in my opinion, are created by moments. Actually, I love that book, The Power of Moments. But they're created by moments that create memories, which is what, again, the sisterhood events are about, is creating a small room with intentional conversation. We keep it intimate for a reason, so people feel comfortable and they can speak to people. And they're going to have conversations that they remember or that make them laugh. You know that if you have a good conversation and someone absolutely makes you belly laugh, you're not going to forget that. And that's what creates that connection. You do know if you're in the right room. And there is nothing wrong with walking into a room, because good on you for having a go and then getting in there and going, you know what, this isn't for me. So then leave. You're allowed to leave. You don't have to stay there. But it should be around people that clap for you. They, challenge you a little bit, but in a good way, in a positive way. And they remind you of your potential. I would suggest auditing, friends. That's like a takeaway that I would say, whether it's finding a room, but even work out the 5 people that you do spend the most time with. Do they cheer for you? Do they challenge you? Do they make you laugh? It's not always about business. It can just be about the way somebody makes you feel. I've had friendships that I've cut away because they've put me down in front of other people. Great with me, but we get in front of other people and they need to rise and they need to push me down and shrink me. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. You don't make me feel good about myself, and that's just not good enough. So audit your friends.
Excellent advice. Because again, as you said earlier, we have the choice that we can make. So again, having that awareness, are the rooms that I'm in, are the people that are around me, are they cheering for me? And as you said, that's just a sense that you get. Whether people are genuinely cheering for you and genuinely happy for your success, or are they competing with you? Because we have that enough in the world. We don't need the closest people around us to be doing that to us. You've mentioned mentorship and coaching a few times while we've been talking. And I've spoken to many other people that have also said the value that they've had out of a mentorship or coaching. For someone who is thinking of taking this step towards getting a mentor or coach, what should they be looking for? How should they go about searching for someone that would be a good fit for them?
It's really easy in that find someone that's walked the walk, that's walked the path that you want to walk, and also find someone that you actually like. I think that's important too, because you might actually identify someone that's walked the path that you want to walk, but you don't necessarily gel with them. So it needs to have those two things, in my opinion. You need to be comfortable enough because this person, you need to share your vulnerabilities with them so they can give you the right solutions.
You sort of mentioned it earlier as well. Walk into different spaces, go try out different things, and possibly by trying out different things, you might find that one person that you connect with, but then also make sure that they have got the experience behind the things that they're saying. They've not just read it in a book and now they're able to talk and they've not actually had the experience. So I think those two things are very important.
Well, do your research as well in that, find someone else that's worked with that person and get their take. I think word of mouth and references is such a good way to identify good people. Here in the UAE, that's how we all connect. It's like word of mouth, and it's such a good community here. I can't believe how many people connect people with each other. It's absolutely fabulous.
Let me ask you, what's next for you and Sisterhood Collective? Are you working on any new exciting projects?
So Sisterhood Collective, we've just launched our new membership, or we've rebranded it actually, because we got better clarity. And I think we need to evolve with the demands and the needs of our audience. So now we have our new membership, and I hope through that we can have some really good reach and get some great results for people wanting to grow and feel a part of something, feel supported, feel seen, and at the end of the day, become unstoppable. For me personally, it's to continue building the podcast and help these women in my mastermind group, which for me is working with the 5% and the 5% that do what 95% won't do. And that's how they get to success. Where we go from there, who knows? The world's our oyster, and I'm very excited.
I love how part of your clarity is to see how you can reach more people, how you can help more people, especially women, to grow and feel supported. And I wish you and the Sisterhood Collective all the very best with your new plans and all the exciting things ahead for you.
Thank you very much.
Now we've come to the segment of our show where I will ask you some rapid fire questions, our version of a game show. Are you ready?
Hit me.
Action or planning? What comes first for you?
Oh, my goodness. I love planning, but I also shoot it from the hip.
One non-negotiable in your daily routine?
Exercise.
A book that has deeply impacted your mindset?
So many. The very first one, though, was How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How would you describe your leadership style?
It's changed, thankfully, from army to now. I am direct, approachable. Maybe that's it.
What does sisterhood mean to you?
It means finding a group of people to lean on, to grow with, and to thrive with.
Now, you sort of might have answered this one already, but I'll ask it anyway. What is one thing you do every day, no matter how busy you get?
Oh, I walk Lulu.
Well, thank you for playing along, and that was easy enough. Now I would like to ask you our signature green pill question. Could you share an inspiring or life-changing experience that you have gone through, your green pill moment?
I think the biggest green pill moment for me was making the choice to leave the army, because it's literally when I found myself. I've had many green pill moments, but that one is when I came from being told what to do, from a life of being told what to do, and not in a bad way, it's just part of growing up, to a moment where Laurie Drummond became her version of herself. And that was really important because that's what has, led me on this path to today.
Laurie, thank you so much for being here and for sharing so honestly and openly. I love the stories you've told. Your journey from army life to creating a global community is a reminder that reinvention is possible at any stage and that we have a choice. I absolutely love that takeaway from today. Before we wrap up, where can our listeners connect with you or learn more about Sisterhood Collective?
Oh my goodness, we're everywhere. You can check us out on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram, Sisterhood Collective. You can just Google it. You'll find something. We're also on Facebook, or I think we're on TikTok as well. And then my podcast is on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple, which is Unstoppable 5%.
I love it. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, thank you for joining another episode of the Matrix Green Pill podcast. If you found value in today's conversation as much as I have, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, and share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. Until next time, take action, trust your journey, and remember, the right room can change everything.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.